And now, it's time to get your entire financial house in perfect order and keep it that way forever. This is the Victory, Wealth, and Wisdom Show with your host, James Hait.
Hey everybody, it's James Hait, everybody's hometown financial advisor. I hope you're having a great day and welcome to the very first episode of our very first live streaming show, the Victory, Wealth, and Wisdom Show. We are so excited that each and every one of you are joining us here today, and for all the people that are going to be replaying this video. Now this is going to be an interactive type of a show, so you'll notice some people have already started putting some comments up, and we'd love to hear from you. In fact, Daniel, I have to agree with you. Most financial advisors can't dance like this. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's a thing. So I appreciate the comments. As we go through the program, and we're going to explain a little bit about what this program's all about here in a moment, but if you have a question that you would like to ask me live here on the show, here's what I ask you to do. Just simply put a question mark in the chat and then your question. So question mark first. That way as we're scrolling through, we can grab the questions right off the top as quickly as we can, and then we'll be able to ask you or answer any of the questions that you might ask as long as we have the time for that. So what is this show all about? Well, as you know, there's plenty of TV shows and internet shows all about finances and investing. In fact, they seem to pretty much give anybody a show on television as long as they know how to hit buzzers, break glass, or they have big shiny teeth, whatever the case may be. But one of the things that I found that was lacking was real substance, diving deep into specific, kind of in a long format type of subjects, whether it's income planning, taxes, retirement, whatever the case may be, things, how does COVID affect your retirement? So we're going to dive deep on subjects just like that. We're going to try to stick to a theme every show. The theme of today's show is all about taxes in retirement. So get ready for that. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're like, oh my goodness, if I'm listening to this as a podcast and we're going to be talking about taxes, I should probably pull over because I'm going to fall asleep. Well, hopefully you won't fall asleep. We're going to have a lot of interaction. And the goal here is that you take at least maybe 1, 2 things, maybe even 3, jot them down if you can, or try to remember them or rewatch the show. Just gems, if you will, that we can go and you can use those in your life. Now, if what I'm saying in this show at any point resonates with you and you're like, you know what, I'd like to get together with James and Victory and just maybe see if we're a right fit or if they can help me or maybe answer a question for you directly, here's a very simple, easy thing that you can do. All you have to do is go to talktovictory.com. That's talktovictory.com and get on our calendar. And what we will do, what we commit to do for you is a 15-minute strategy session. We call it the Victory Strategy Session. So go ahead and get on there and we'll be happy to answer any of your questions in person as opposed to chat. Now, I will say this about the chat. Be very careful that when you're putting something in the chat, don't reveal any personal information, right? There's enough people out there in the world all trying to grab your information. Let's not give them any fodder, so let's not do that. But right now, we're going to get right into the show. Okay, so yeah, I thought that was cool too. Anyway, so what are we talking about today? We're talking about retirement and taxes. There's plenty right now, especially with tax season coming up. We keep seeing it over and over and over again. Maybe your social media is just filled with different advertisements for different tax seminars. If you're at or near retirement, you are the age that financial advisors are bombarding with advertisements. You can't get away from it, it seems like. So whether it's on Facebook or YouTube or wherever it is, and you may have heard things about taxes, things that are coming down the road, maybe the tax train, the tax storm, my favorite, the tax-nado, Tax-mageddon, whatever it is, it's impending doom about taxes. Well, what on earth are all these advertisements talking about? Well, here's what it is. December 31st, 2025. Jot that down on your calendar. December 31st, 2025. What is that? That is the date when the Trump tax cuts expire. They sunset. So if you recall, when Trump first got into office, the very first law that was passed was a reduction in the tax brackets for married and single all across the board. And it was one of the most, probably an absolutely massive tax break for the country. Now, let me give you a little bit of a disclaimer here. We are not going to talk politics per se on this show. So to me, it doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat or Episcopalian. It really doesn't matter. Okay, I thought that joke was going to be funny. Okay, apparently not. Anyway, but here's the fact of the matter. What politicians do in Washington have a direct effect, regardless of who's in office, on how you should be planning for your retirement or living out your retirement. And we're going to hit on that. So our job as financial advisors, obviously we can't predict the future, but what we can do is take control of what we can actually control. So when we learn of new laws or when they're changing in the future, then we can make course corrections so that you stay on track to reach your goals for the reasons that are important to you. Sounds pretty reasonable, right? So let's talk about that. The Trump tax changes are going to sunset on December 31st, 2025. Now, what does that mean? It means that if you're a high earner, what's going to happen is your tax bracket is going to bump up significantly back to the 2017 rates. What kind of impact do you suppose that could have on your retirement? Well, last time you were talking to your kids, maybe your neighbors, maybe at the bunko night, whatever it is that you're doing, has anybody ever said, I'm just not paying enough taxes? No, that's crazy. Nobody ever says that. We only want to pay the bare minimum amount that we are legally obliged to pay, right? Everybody feels that way. Well, there are things that are happening right now. There are things actually that you can do right now so that when the Trump tax change or tax laws sunset in 2025, that you will be better prepared. Now, there are several books out there that we've studied, several programs and master classes that we take part in, and a lot of them have to do with getting your income bracket down to zero. Imagine having a 0% tax bracket. Is that even possible? Well, yeah, if I don't make any money, right? You might be thinking to yourself, well, no. You can actually rearrange all of the assets potentially that you have so that you can actually experience a 0% tax bracket. Well, how is that even possible? Well, before we get into that, let's see how a lot of retirees oftentimes get themselves into trouble. So what we're going to talk about is the tax impact of 2021. But the first thing we're going to talk about is tax deferral. Now, perhaps you've heard of tax deferral. Most people know what it is, but it's like, say you have a retirement account, an IRA, 401k, 403b, wherever it's at, a company plan, a SEP, IRA. When you put money into these type of financial vehicles, what happens? It grows tax deferred. In other words, you're not paying any taxes as that money grows. And to begin with, you get a little bit of a tax break because you never pay taxes when it goes in. That's great because your money grows and grows and grows and grows and grows, all tax deferred. You're not getting a 1099 or paying taxes every year like maybe on your capital gains or your savings or your CDs. You're not getting any of that every year. But eventually, the piper calls, right? So when you start pulling that money out of those accounts, what happens? Well, that's when the tax man comes after you. And it's interesting to me when we meet with people and they bring in their statements, and maybe they have statements from their 401k plan, a big box brokerage firm, and Joe the broker's been working with them for years and years and years, and they built up this fabulous retirement portfolio, $750,000, $1 million or more. Well, think about that. You look at that statement and you're like, I have $750,000. It makes you feel good, right? Well, here's the sad reality. You don't have $750,000. I don't have $750,000. What do we have? We have maybe $500,000. Why is that? Because Uncle Sam is our silent partner, the IRS. Because we've never paid taxes on that money, we will owe that money when we start pulling it out. So another way to look at our financial statements, our retirement statements, are really to think that, you know what, 40% of this is not mine. So if you had that mentality, what would you be doing now in order to bump up the balances in your account without having to pay taxes? That's exactly what we're going to talk about. Because like it or not, taxes are going to go up. There is just nothing anybody can do about that. Taxes are going up. So when we come back, we're going to talk about that, some of the effects that taxes can have on you and who they're going to impact, and then how to plan so that you can have a 0% tax bracket. We'll be right back.
Remember when life was simpler? When things didn't move quite so fast? And the world didn't seem so complex? Remember that? We do. And as the world around us has continued to speed up, becoming more complicated and still a bit uncertain, we have managed to keep things simple, providing sound, easy to understand financial advice and customized roadmaps for the road ahead, from tax reduction strategies and guaranteed retirement income you cannot outlive, backed by the claims-paying ability of insurance companies. We can be your single point of contact, a single call, a voice you recognize well, and a partner who can be by your side for the entire journey. We can't stop the world around us, but we can help ensure you're prepared for what's to come. For a complimentary consultation, simply contact us today.
All right, welcome back. So as we were just discussing, we're talking about tax deferral. And tax deferral can be a really great thing because we can save our money. It helps it to grow faster. But at the end of the day, it really is, just like all the ads that we're seeing, a ticking tax time bomb. So what can we do about that? Well, as we know, taxes are definitely going up. So let's talk about that, about taxes going up. So in your lifetime, how many times have you seen taxes actually go down? Now me, I'm middle-aged. I've seen them go down significantly one time, and that was with the tax law that happened in 2017 that took place and that's going to expire in 2025. But as taxes, as you think about it, the national debt is just exploding. In fact, it's grown, it's mushroom cloud, if you will. Why? Because of all the tax relief bills, the COVID spending that we've had over the last 2 years. Think about that, over $6 trillion, that's with the T, trillion dollars in relief for people all over the country and businesses and so forth. Now, whether you want to argue that we need it or not, there are definitely many people out there who need to have that kind of relief. But at the end of the day, who's going to pay for that? Well, it's going to be you and it's going to be me. So, and we're going to pay we're going to pay for that in the form of taxes, because taxes will go up. You know, only a small portion, when you think about it, only a small portion of taxes that are collected for every $1, a major portion of that only covers like 4 different programs. What are they? Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and food stamps. That's like 67 to 70 cents on the dollar that for every dollar that is taken in taxes. That leaves about 30 cents for what? Everything else. We're talking the FBI, the military, the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. You name it. Every other program you can imagine is just that little tiny sliver of the dollar. Now, think about the impact that that's going to have. Now, there's only 2 different things that we can do, or as a nation, the nation can do in order to fix that. Now, what is it? It's number 1, you can either raise taxes, or number 2, cut programs. Now, if you do either of those, well, what politician would even run on that platform? Hey, vote for me. I'm going to raise taxes and cut all the programs that I can. no one would vote for that person. So what do? They just keep kicking the can down the road further and further and further as the tax bubble just keeps building up and building up and building up until what? Till one day it is going to explode. So what do we do about that? Well, it's interesting to note that there are things that you and I can do right now, things that if we start taking advantage of it now, we can have a 0% tax bracket so that none of this affects us in the future. So how do you do that? Well, we're going to talk about that when we talk about how to plan. So first of all, let's talk about who's impacted. Now, this show is being live streamed from the state of Arizona. And the state of Arizona recently had a change from a red state to a blue state. Now, whether that's from people that moved in or change in political philosophy, who knows? But what we do know is at the exact same time, Arizona just approved a massive tax hike on high earners. And many states could be next. Now, some states, they went the opposite direction. We're able to cut taxes in 2020. But for the state of Arizona, as an example, when you think about this, it was already for high earners, we're paying 4.5% approximately on state tax. So add that to your federal tax. Now you're paying 4.5%. They just added a 3.5% surcharge on high earners. Now, what does that mean? Well, if you're an individual with an income over $250,000 or joint over $500,000, guess what? You're paying an additional surcharge. And what is that surcharge supposed to cover? Well, it's supposed to cover education. So as it covers education, and you think about that, well, how is that covering education now when most kids are being homeschooled and so forth? Yes, of any industry, obviously our schools need the most help, but at what cost? So a lot of people are curious and wondering, what do we do? I moved to Arizona, you might be thinking, to because of lower taxes. In fact, in California, the tax rate was north of 12% for the same high earners. Now they move, get all the house packed up, they move here to Arizona, and what happens? They raise the taxes to 8% for the high earners. So you can see why there's people flooding to different states all over the country where taxes are lower because it's just a burden. So many people are impacted. Now, who else is impacted by high taxes? It's people you may not even be aware of. It could be you. Now, think about this just for a moment. If you have, you've been married filing jointly. Here's an example. We have some clients, they are married filing jointly, and they've been living off of their portfolio, not their IRA, their portfolio, for about 5 years. And for 5 years, they've been paying less than 15% because some of it was just capital gains because they're not taking any type of retirement distribution because they're relatively younger. Now, think about this. Once they turn 72, because the age changed from 70 and a half to 72, to take your required minimum distribution, or RMD. Now, what's that? You've been growing all that money tax deferred. It's been building up with no end in sight. And then eventually, Uncle Sam says, you know what? It's time for you to start paying some taxes on that. So the IRS makes you start withdrawing at age 72. Well, here is a couple that have been experiencing and enjoying a very, relatively low tax bracket because of the way they were taking their income. And all of a sudden, with a very large IRA, they're going to have to start taking their required minimum distribution, which is going to skyrocket them into the next tax bracket, perhaps 2 tax brackets. And then on top of that, depending on the level of income that you have, now you're paying 8% state tax. I mean, do you see how taxes can just be nosebleed high? It's just insane. It's crazy. Now, here's something that many people don't think about. Same couple. What if one of them passes away? Now they no longer get the credit for filing jointly, married filing jointly. And what happens is to an individual, bam, the taxes go up even higher. It's an unintended consequence many people don't even think about. So as you're sitting here thinking about your own portfolio, you're thinking about the tax storm, bomb, tax NATO, tax Mageddon, whatever tax horrible nightmare that all the financial advisors and the economists and analysts keep talking about on the news that is coming, whether it's a tax train or not, it will be here, and it will be on time, December 31st, 2025. As you're sitting here wondering about your own finances, do you have a plan? Do you have a plan in place? Have you had this conversation with your financial advisor? Is your financial advisor, when you meet with them, putting you on a plan to help reduce or eliminate your taxes altogether by the time you hit required minimum distribution age, which is 72? Or if you're already older than that, what is your financial advisor doing to help reduce or eliminate your taxes altogether? By the way, do you know the difference between avoiding taxes and evading taxes? It's about 30 years, so you got to be careful. So you don't want to end up in jail. There are legal ways to do this, but it all starts with a plan. You have to have a plan. Each and every one of us have to have a plan. So that's what we're going to talk about when we come back, is how you can develop a plan so that you can get to the 0% tax bracket. We'll be right back.
When you have confidence in your retirement future, you can live the life you've always imagined. Because of planning, you now have time to reflect on the wonderful memories of your life. You and your spouse finally have the luxury of leisure time together. To spend fun times with your grandkids, sharing the joy of their excitement about life. Smiling at the thought of quality time with your children and of picking up the check. At last, you have time to breathe and rekindle the love of your life. Why? Because you imagined what could be. You planned for retirement. So today, you own your future.
All right, welcome back. So, when we went into the break, we were talking about who is impacted by taxes, and for the most part, it's people who are going to be at or near retirement, the middle class and higher. That's who's going to be impacted. But there are certain things that you can do right now. So let's talk about planning, on how to plan so that you can get to a 0% tax bracket. To begin with, you've heard many times people talk about it, and maybe it sounds complicated, but the reality is it's not, and that is a Roth conversion. What is a Roth conversion? So a Roth IRA is single-handedly one of the best investments that the IRS has ever allowed, in my opinion. Now, I could be wrong, but I don't think I am, okay? Because here's what it is. Unlike your traditional IRA, where you put money into it before you've even paid taxes on it, and it grows and grows and grows and grows, a Roth, and then when you start pulling money out, you get taxed on it. A Roth IRA, you put the money in after you've paid the taxes on it, and it grows and grows and grows and grows, but when you pull it out, guess what? You get that money tax-free. Yeah, tax-free money. Now, let me ask you this. What's cheaper when it comes to, what would you rather pay taxes on? Would you rather pay taxes on the seed or the harvest when you're thinking about farming? The seed or the harvest? Well, you want to pay taxes on the seed, right? Because it's smaller. The harvest is really big. So when you're thinking about that, the seed or the harvest, which would you rather pay taxes on? You want to pay it on the seed. And now is the time to pay the taxes on your Roth conversions when you're moving from a traditional IRA, paying the taxes and putting it into your Roth IRA. Why? Because taxes are on sale. right now we are experiencing the lowest tax rates in pretty much the history of the United States. Now is the time for high earners and middle income to start thinking about the potential and the consequences of whether or not they should move from taxable to tax-free. Now think about that just for a moment. Going from always taxed to never taxed. Wouldn't that be great? And it's not a pipe dream. We do this all the time for our clients. Now, when you're thinking about how to do that, some people go, oh, well, maybe I'll just take the big tax hit all in 1 year. Well, that one client that we were talking about ahead of time or previously? Well, think about this just for a moment. $1 million IRA, had we just immediately just converted it all from tax always to tax never, they would have experienced a tremendous amount of taxes they have to pay in 1 year, but then they'd be done. They'd be completely done. And you think, okay, we just ripped off the Band-Aid. Does that always make sense? Not always, no. And here's why. So when you are when you're transferring money from an IRA into a Roth IRA, it oftentimes makes more sense to do it in chunks over time, like between now and 2025. Why is that? Oftentimes you can save hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes just by keeping your tax bracket just slightly below the next level. But how are you possibly going to know what that level is and how to actually do a Roth conversion? Well, it's super, super easy to do. Here's what you do. You simply go to talktovictory.com or check out the link below us right here and click and schedule a free 15-minute victory session. And in that strategy session, what we will do is see if even having a discussion about converting from always tax to never tax is right for you. It's not right for everybody simply because of amounts of money and time and how old a person is. But having a trusted advisor that you can talk to and will give it to you straight and say, you know what, this is not for you. You shouldn't do this. Or, you know what, this could work. Here's how we do it. Now, some people wonder, well, I don't have, I may have IRA and I'd like to start a Roth IRA, but I just simply make too much money. So when you think about that, some people with Roth IRAs, some people that are high income earners cannot have a Roth IRA. IRS won't let them. But here's the secret. You can do as many Roth conversions as you would like. So if you have a traditional IRA, 401k, 403b, whatever the case may be, then you have an opportunity to convert some part or all of that into a Roth as much as you want. Does it make sense that they don't allow one but allow the other? No, it's the government. It's not supposed to make sense. So those are just a few of the strategies that you can do in order to help minimize your taxes. So now is a chance. Let's go ahead and go to the chat. And if you have a question, again, put a question mark in front of your question, just like Buck did. And thank you, Buck. Buck's funny. Let's see what he says. So is it okay to ask a question here? Yes, Buck. Ask your question. Ask away. And everybody else, if you have a question, go ahead and throw that on there. And while that's queuing up, Shelby says, great information. Thanks, Shelby. Appreciate it. And we'll queue up a couple. Now, as those are coming up, again, math and logic, that's the primary tools of a really good financial advisor, math and logic. And so math doesn't lie. So how do you figure out just how much money you should be converting from always taxed to never taxed? Well, fortunately, as a financial advisor, we have some very powerful tools at our disposal that we simply take your tax returns, we take your income and all of your portfolio, we put it all together, we do an in-depth analysis, and we find out specifically what is the best trajectory, what is the best path for you in order to go from always taxed to never taxed. So get your questions ready. When we come back, we're going to talk about, answer all the questions that we have time for, and then we'll follow up with a few words. So we'll be right back.
You don't walk into a doctor's office for some blanket prescription for whatever ails you. You expect individualized attention. a doctor who listens, and a treatment prescribed to meet your specific need. When it comes to your financial future, why expect anything less? If you would like an independent checkup from an independent advisor with access to a wide variety of solutions to help you meet your goals, contact us today.
All right, welcome back. So let's get right into your questions. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, so Buck, he says he has over $1 million in a 401k. Hey, good for you, Buck. He's 66 and figured I could retire literally any time. So he's still working. Should I do a Roth conversion? And the answer to that is it depends. So there's many factors when it comes to doing a Roth conversion, like how much are you currently making in income? Can you, if you do a Roth conversion, will it bump you up into an exorbitant tax bracket? But for the most part, many people can do a Roth conversion. And the next question that it's Buck, he's asking again, let's go. Should I use different investments after I do a Roth conversion than I did before I converted? What are your best suggestions? So typically, as you grow older, the older you are, the less risk your people should be taking when it comes to their portfolio. So that's a really good question because I kind of liken it to a roller coaster. Have you ever been on a roller coaster? I'm sure most of us have. But did you know that older people typically don't do roller coasters? Now, why is that? Well, like Jim Gaffigan said, the best ride at Disneyland is the air-conditioned shuttle on the way back to the airport. But for the most part, older people don't ride roller coasters because of the health risk. Think about that. As you do those loop-de-loops, going around and around and around, when you're younger, the tissue in your brain, it expands and then contracts. When you're older and you hit those same loops, the tissue in your brain expands and it sticks. That's why they say that older people should not ride roller coasters. Now, why is that? Because of the risk of stroke. So if you learned anything from today's program, if you're older, please don't be riding roller coasters. It's just too risky. But likewise, how many people over the last 15 or 20 years in the market have been on a roller coaster when it comes to their finances? The market's up big, it's down big, it's up big, it's down big. You open your statements, you about have a stroke. So one of the things that we do when we sit down and we talk with you and all the people that, all of our existing clients, we have a continuous conversation is just, at what point should you be taking some of those winnings off the table, making them safe while still getting, a decent rate of return, but this is your forever money. Now, how much of that are you going to risk? So we have some very powerful tools at our disposal that we can help determine with just a few questions and looking at your overall picture, just how much risk you should be taking, and we can give you those recommendations. And here's Stephen. Stephen, should I wait to retire to move over to a Roth IRA, or can I start the process before retirement? Stephen, you can start the process anytime you want for a conversion. So think about that for a moment. There are rules to having a Roth IRA before you can start spending the money. Of course, you have to be 59 and a half or older, and you have to at least have your Roth IRA open for 5 years. Now, does that mean you had to have it open for a continuous 5 years? No. So if you're younger, and you look like a young buck there, so if you're younger and you just started a Roth IRA through, $1,000, $100 in there, whatever it is, if you started it, that starts the countdown timer. So of the 5 years, it's the craziest thing. So that's another little tidbit you can take away. Here's a gem. Ready? Help your kids and grandkids as soon as they're able to start a Roth IRA, even if it's with $100. That way, when they can start saving for real down the road, that 5-year time limit, it's gone. Well, there you go. I mean, that's worth the show right there. So can I, again, Stephen, let me see if I answered your question. Should I wait until I retire to move over to a Roth IRA? No, you don't have to. You can do it any time. In fact, we have several people that work for big institutions, hospitals, factories, you name it, that are currently participating in their 401k or their company plan. If it's a hospital, it's a 403b. We have federal employees. There are many things that you can do right now, depending on your age, to start moving those funds from always tax to never tax. And if your company offers a Roth 401k and you're under 59 and a half, man, I would really be taking a serious look at that for sure. Okay, let's say what Daniel says. Does the same principle of a Roth conversion apply to distributions made into a new Roth IRA for newer investors, or is the benefit in the conversion process? When you convert your money, when it after you paid all the taxes, all the money that ever comes out of the new account, the Roth is going to be tax-free. If you're just starting out and you're newer, all the money that you pull out when you're allowed to at 59 and a half or older is also tax-free. So it's the exact same thing. Now remember, if you pull out money prior to age 59 and a half, here's a little bit of a warning. You will get a 10% penalty from the IRS. Now, again, I don't like paying any more money to the IRS than I have to, but you definitely don't want to do that. Now, some people, they do. There are circumstances, by the way, that you can pull money out of an IRA, and they're very limited, but the IRS does recognize those. But if you want the new Tesla, or you want to get all 6 of your kids the new iPad, you're going to pay a 10% penalty. So you have to be so careful on what you're spending on. Okay. So, as we wrap up today, think about this, and hopefully I got your questions. By the way, if I didn't get your questions, here's what you do. You just go click on the link right below us and tap on Talk to Victory and schedule a 15-minute appointment. We'll call you, and then we'll be able to answer all of your questions in that little 15-minute victory strategy session. We'll do that for each and every one of you. Now, as we wrap up today, let's just kind of review. As we wrap it up today, let's review what it is that we talked about, okay? So again, tax deferral, it's a very powerful tool. Each and every one of us can use that. But eventually, what do they say? You can't have your cake and eat it too? Well, I hate that saying because I want my cake and I want to eat it too, right? Maybe I've had a little too much cake, I don't know. But the fact is tax deferral can help, especially over a long period of time. But we have to be smart about it and how we utilize that. Taxes are going up. I mean, all of us, I think, out here in cyberspace on the World Wide Web right now watching this program can agree that taxes are going to go up. We have to no one's going to cut programs, and no one's going to raise taxes on a platform as a politician until they get into office. And that's what we're seeing right now. Who's impacted? It's across the board. It's going to be people who are middle class and high earners especially. And if you're looking to reduce taxes right now, maybe think about where you live. Should you move to Wyoming? How about Texas? There's a gigantic migration to Texas right now. Why? Because the philosophies, the policies, and politics perhaps of that state, but a huge important factor is the lower taxes. Arizona used to be in that bracket. We'll see what happens in the next couple of years or so. And then how to plan. Well, first of all, how to plan, you meet with somebody. If you do not have a professional, give us a call. We'll be happy to sit down with you. If you have a financial advisor, talk to them about this, get them involved. But then again, I would think if you have a financial advisor and they're not addressing these questions, do they really want to help you do this? I don't know. Maybe they're just too busy. And we've had probably in 2020 our biggest year ever with so many people coming from other firms. We do not have any clients currently that have never had a financial advisor. Every single one of our clients have already had a financial advisor. And it's funny because when I talk to somebody, they say, well, I already have a financial advisor. And I say, that's great. We specialize in helping people who already have a financial advisor that they're happy with. Why? Because we make them happier. So regardless of whether you work with us or not, perhaps we can point you in the right direction. All you have to do is, again, click on that 15-minute victory strategy session, and we'll make sure that we set aside some time to get your questions answered. And if we're a right fit for each other and we decide we want to go ahead and move forward in the process, we can have that discussion. If not, you can take that information. You can work with your existing advisor, or if you're a hardcore do-it-yourselfer, you can do that as well. But either way, you will know how you can reduce your taxes in retirement and how to get to a 0% tax bracket. So thank you very much, everybody, for being here today. We're going to do this every Wednesday at 3 p.m. At least that's the time that we're shooting for now. That might change depending on our audience, but you can always watch the replay. And for your information, this program is going to be rebroadcast on several different radio stations on Saturday morning here in the Prescott, Arizona, and Phoenix metropolitan area. So you can look forward to that. Again, I'm James Hait. The company is Victory Wealth Services. Our show, the Victory Wealth and Wisdom Show, I think it went pretty well. What do you guys think? Yeah? Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, listen, we will see you guys next time. And if you have any questions, again, give us a call. We are here for you.
And now,